Top stories in our news today. President Edgar Lungu says there is no compromise with regards to the 20% subcontracting policy for foreign contractors. Justice Minister Given Lubinda says cabinet is yet to approve the refined draft constitution. And the Zambian and Angolan government has signed a $5 billion memorandum of understanding on bilateral cooperation on trade in oil and gas. Now the news in detail. President Edgar Lungu says the government will not compromise on the 20% subcontracting policy for foreign contractors. Early this year, government, through the Ministry of Housing and Infrastructure Development, expressed concern on how some foreign contractors are failing to adhere to the 20% subcontraction policy to the Zambian contractors across the country. But President Lungu has implored foreign contractors to partner with local contractors in areas where they cannot work due to lack of skills to ensure that they transfer the skills to local contractors. He has told journalists on the Copper Belt after inspecting the ongoing construction of the bridge on Dagama Short Drive that he is impressed with works being done so far. President Lungu says that this is an indication that his administration is implementing its campaign promises it made prior to the 2016 general elections. And the Republican president has maintained that he will work with an investor who has shown interest in investing in the country. The head of state has therefore advised employers to dialogue with their workers and address the challenges facing workers across the country.
You see, the impression of what is being done is that we should be happy that we have a government which promised to do certain things and is doing them, as opposed to those who want to come and give excuses when the time comes to account for your time in office. When the end of the tour of duty comes, you want to point to certain things. Zambians bought into the PF vision way back in 2011. And they renewed their mandate and belief and confidence in PF in 2016. It's about developing infrastructure, improving the well-being of our people, economically growth and so on. And this is what we are doing. So the impression that I have is that we're on the ball. And like I said, we don't want to keep listening to noise outside. This is what we want. Agriculture, tourism, infrastructure development, manufacturing. We promise the Zambian people a lot. And we are grateful that our partners, whether Chinese or Americans or Europeans, they're all doing what they've told us they will do.
And also just the issue, I heard Jim say there are 800 locals that have been employed. Just a word in terms of job creation.
We had a one-on-one closed-door meeting with colleagues. We talked about the welfare of our Zambian workers. We talked about skills transfer. Because it's not very wise to employ them in the most many jobs, but it's wise to give them those who have skills or have competent levels of education where you can impart certain skills to them, so that at the end of the day, when the project is over, they'll be able to live and sustain themselves or even go and work elsewhere. We can't just be hewers of wood and drawers of water all the time. We want to partner with people who can transfer skills, and that's what they're doing. The 800 workers so far, we can introduce some of them. My perception is that they are happy in that. But obviously, through progressive dialogue, conditions of service will be improved slowly. And you see,
residents of Chongwe's Vona and Ndeke residential areas have stopped the operations of a defined block-making factory which is situated between the two areas, citing environmental concerns. The resolution was arrived at during a meeting held on Sunday, 4th of November 2018, which was called on the advice of Minister of Water Development and Environmental Protection, Dr. Dennis Wanchinga, and was attended by officials from the Zambia Environmental Management Authority, ZEMA. In their submissions, the residents expressed concern with the negative environmental impact the operations of the block manufacturing factory might bring upon them. More in the following report.
The block-making business is thriving in Zambia, following the emerging of new townships and redevelopment of old structures by property owners. This has seen many block manufacturing companies setting up operations in residential areas so that they can be closer to prospective clients without consideration of the environmental impact of their operations in undesignated areas. However, residents of Vona and Ndeke townships located adjacent to the Kenneth Kaunda International Airport have rejected being subjected to health and environmental hazards by a prospective investor, Defined Investment Limited.
I was done. I believe
did you do that? Even if you come up with mitigating whatever, that relationship will not grow.
The alleged residents have since January this year resisted the idea by the company to set up its operations in the township. Speaking at this meeting, the over 100 concerned residents submitted that while they are not opposed to development, ensuring an environmentally friendly township is a priority for them.
On the community, because talking about the level of pollution, first from dust, right? Have you looked at the expenses to which people are going to be subjected to as they seek medical services as a result of the factory? Have you looked at also the end effects? Because people may die because of they are pneumatic and they can't really tolerate the level of pollution you are bringing to the community.
But at what cost have you taken this initiative? Is that the cost of three issues that I'll bring to the floor. The first one is that you realize that I'm sure if you may not be aware of the history of the problem we have had with roads here in Minwood. This has been like a dream come true for us. And should we allow these roads to be subjected to damage that we can easily take care of? No, we cannot do that.
For convenience of the location of the factory, I cannot bargain on the health of the community. For the noise pollution, we cannot bargain with the health of the community for the impact that is going to have on the aquifer there. In fact, just last week, we went to take a look at the aquifer. And what we found is that this is the most fragile aquifer that we have.
Not even pleas from the 4 Zambian nationals who are for the idea and 2 Turkish prospective investors could move this well-informed community.
Block making machine. I've never heard anyone. My point is this should be categorized.
Have you been to China before? No, not even China. I think I've got a personal experience.
All right, let him finish and we will give you. Let's categorize this as light industry in nature. It's not heavy industry.
The environment is the most important resource for life. It is therefore an informed community such as this one that is needed in ensuring the safety water, land, among others, from pollution. Chileshe Mwango reporting for QTV News.
Minister of Justice Given Lubinda says the Cabinet has not yet approved the publication of the Constitution Amendment Bill and the refined draft Constitution. Mr. Lubinda says Cabinet will have to approve the publication of the 2 documents following President Edgar Lungu's directive to suspend the constitution-making process to pave way for the national dialogue. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Lubinda says he cannot therefore state exactly when the 2 documents will be published, considering that there are other government processes that ought to take place before this is done. He, however, states that this is a matter that is active in a cabinet. He says he is therefore not moved by threats by the civil society constitutional agenda, CISCA, to pressure government to release the Constitution Amendment Bill and the refined draft Constitution. Mr. Lubinda has since challenged CISCA, which has threatened to go countrywide to conscientize people on the need to release the 2 national documents to go ahead with its plans. He says as far as he is concerned, the threats that are being made by civil society organizations are unnecessarily because the process of refining the Republican Constitution has not stalled.
The threats they're making, for me, are unnecessary. I can even encourage them now. Let them go out now and start campaigning for the refinement of the Constitution. Let them go out and make sure that every Zambian is aware of the fact that there are some lacunas in our Constitution. There are inconsistencies in our Constitution that require reforming. Let them do it. It's their duty. They mustn't make it appear as though it's a threat. And it is unnecessary. What they should do is to partner with us, because it is the interest of government to make sure that as many citizens as possible are aware of the process. So they can start the process now to sensitize people, and when government publishes the Constitutional Amendment Bill in the Gazette, again they can go out and show the people the proposals that government received from the various stakeholders, so that when the bill is presented to Parliament, Zambians can see themselves in the refined constitution. This is their responsibility. So they mustn't appear as though it is them against us. For us in government, it is us together. And I'd like to thank those civil society organizations that made submissions, the political parties that made submissions, and I'm hoping that those who have been dragging their feet will now listen to the civil society organizations and pull up their socks to contribute. Those who don't want to contribute, let them not delay the process, and let them not hide behind talking about talks and dialogue, which is not coming into fruition. We have seen how people have been shifting goalposts. Each time we talk about progress in dialogue, national dialogue, the goalposts are shifting. Now, for government, I think that the time is running thin. We'll certainly have to make decisions.
The Zambian and Angolan governments have signed a memorandum of understanding on bilateral cooperations on trade in oil and gas worth $5 billion. And Minister of Energy Matthew Nkuwa says that the equity partner in Indeni Oil Refinery is expected to be announced by the end of this month. Mr. Nkuwa says that the process of acquiring an equity partner for Indeni through the Industrial Development Corporation, IDC, has reached an advanced stage. He says that the move is aimed at capitalizing the petroleum refinery plant. He says that due to absolute equipment, the refinery is currently operating at 65% of its installed capacity of 1.1 million tons of feedstock per year to 600,000 tons. And Mr. Nkuwa says the government spends up to $1 billion in importing petroleum products per annum. He, however, notes that the price of fuel will start to reduce once Zambia finalizes the importation of petroleum products from neighboring Angola through the setting up of a pipeline. Mr. Nkuwa says Mr. Nkuwa was speaking during the signing of a memorandum of understanding on bilateral cooperation on trade in oil and gas with Angolan Minister of Petroleum Diamantino Azevedo in Lusaka.
Therefore, your visit to Zambia demonstrates the mutual commitment that your government and my government have placed on the bilateral cooperation on petroleum and natural gas. Therefore, I'm hopeful that our deliberations today will not only culminate into signing of intergovernmental memorandum of understanding on the bilateral cooperation in the domain of petroleum and natural gas, that it would be a relentless journey to see the activities embedded in the MOU to be implemented to implementation phase. Honorable Minister, I'm aware that the bilateral cooperation between the government and your government will not only facilitate the development of Angola-Zambia oil pipeline, but will, among other things, further facilitate trade in oil and gas, development of petroleum refinery infrastructure, exploration, production and refining of crude oil in Angola, Zambia and other countries, capacity building through exchange visits by experts in oil and gas sectors, namely in the areas of exploration, production, utilization of natural gas and refineries of crude oil, petrochemicals and trade.
And Minister Azevedo says the signing of the MOU, whose desk study value is $5 billion, is the first step in achieving his country's goal to contribute to the economies of neighboring countries like Zambia. Mr. Azevedo says that the MOU now opens way for Angolan companies to start the implementation of the trade in oil and gas between the two countries. He says the Angolan National Oil Company, which oversees petroleum and natural gas production, will be in charge of the trade deal.
And I want to assure you that with that visit, we are setting up the most important step in achieving that goal. We expect with the signing of that MOU that will, up from now, do the right steps to achieve all the intentions resolved from Zambia and from Angola. And since we signed that MOU, we'll have way open for our companies to start and implementing our ideas. From our side, the company that will be in charge to develop all the ideas we are setting up in the MOU will be our national oil company, Sonangol. That is the technical partner of the Angola government for the oil sector.
A mysterious cattle disease has broken out and claimed 7 herds of cattle at Ankonje village in Chief Chamuka's area in Chisamba district of Central Province. Village headman Ankonje Mbewe, who has confirmed the outbreak of the mysterious disease to Zanis in a phone interview, says the disease has claimed at least 7 herds of cattle in the last 5 days. The traditional leader explains that the unknown disease is affecting the neck and causes bleeding in cattle, especially the calves, leading to the death of the animal. He has since appealed for quick intervention by the government through the veterinary department to harness the situation and prevent the spread of the disease. Mr. Mbewe says so far several animals, especially calves, are sick and cannot move about, adding that any delay will see the area lose a lot of animals, which is a source of their livelihood. Efforts to get a comment from Chisamba District Fisheries and Livestock Coordinator Sydney Kalenga proved futile as his line went unanswered, while the District Commissioner Martin Choa expressed ignorance about the matter but assured that he will send the veterinary officers to the area to verify the situation. Mr. Choa, however, says he is aware that Mulungushi and Chikonkomene wards were hit by corridor disease some time back, but that the Nkonje case is so new with him. The DC explains that most of the cattle diseases in the area are due to poor management of animals, as farmers do not follow the guidelines provided to them by veterinary officers. Transparency International Zambia TIZ has observed that ignorance by the Zambians on land administration and acquisition has become a conduit of corruption in the country. The TIZ board member Adam Daka says it is for this reason that his organization has noted the need to revisit the strategies in the fight against corruption in the country. Mr. Daka says that this is why TIZ has introduced new forms of anti-corruption mechanisms by introducing the Land and Corruption in Africa project aimed at providing an interactive interface of transparency accountability in the land administration. Speaking when launching the Land and Corruption in Africa project, Mr. Daka says such a platform is one of the ways that gives the organization the opportunity to be dynamic in the fight against corruption. Mr. Daka says that the users can access information with a click of button and receive immediate feedback on any of the land processes that have been provided. He has emphasized that the platform will also give the users the opportunity to report corruption, including requests for bribes.
The change we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, is us going online. I must make mention here that this decision to go online has been necessitated by the recommendations coming from a needs assessment report under the Land and Corruption in Africa project that identified the need for us to put in place mechanisms such as this platform in order to bridge the information gap. We are today launching a new phone-based platform which can advise many of our people on various aspects of land acquisition and guide them through processes and provide feedback. As Transparency International Zambia, we have mentioned on different perpetrators of corruption that are becoming dynamic on how they conceal evidence, and so we too should revisit our strategies and fight back. In this regard, we think such a platform is one of the ways that gives us the opportunity to be dynamic against the fight of corruption. You will be glad to note, ladies and gentlemen, that once we launch this platform, users can access information with a click of a button and receive immediate feedback on any of the land processes that we have provided. The platform will also give the users the opportunity to report corruption, including requests for bribes. Remember, Corruption in land management ranges from local officials demanding bribes for basic administrative duties to high-level political decisions being unduly influenced.
And speaking at the same event, ACC Deputy Director General Rosemary Nkonde says the Commission is elated by the launch of the Land and Corruption in Africa project, as it will enhance good governance in land administration by improving access to information and contribute towards citizens' adequate access to justice on land issues.
The Commission realizes that there is no single player who can eradicate corruption without other players' participation and contribution. The Commission finds it befitting to continue building coalitions with critical stakeholders such as civil society organizations. TIZ has always been an all-weather partner in the fight against corruption in Zambia. And in cementing this existing partnership in the fight against corruption through this project, the Commission will sign an MOU with TIZ for collaboration in the management of corruption-related information or cases relating from this project, which is expected to emanate from the public on this information and communication technology platform. Further, the Commission is committed to ensuring that it continues to collaborate with the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, Ministry of Local Government, and the Land Alliance, the Zambia Land Alliance, in sharing information relating to corruption in land management. The Commission will endeavor to create awareness to members of the public on the existence of this platform and its relevance so that they appreciate and use the platform effectively.
The Resident Hunters and Conservation Association has demanded that Patriots for Economic Progress, PEP President Sean Tembo apologizes to the association and the Department of National Parks and Wildlife over false allegations of fraud he made towards the two. Mr. Tembo has alleged that the 2018 resident hunting draw held in Lusaka recently was characterized with fraud as it lacked transparency and credibility. Association President Captain David Mwila has told a media briefing that Mr. Tembo reacted with such an allegation after his bid in the hunting raffle draw was unsuccessful. Captain Mwila has wondered why Mr. Tembo did not raise fraud allegations in the year 2016 when he successfully took part in the draw and hunted in Rufunza. He has clarified that 1,612 applications were received, out of which 1,430 were shortlisted successfully, with 187 applications winning the bid. On allegations that 90% of those awarded resident hunting permits are non-indigenous Zambians, Captain Miller has clarified that contrary to Mr. Tembo's allegations, the winners are comprised of 63 Zambians of Indian origin, 19 of European origin, and 105 indigenous Zambians. And Ministry of Tourism and Arts Permanent Secretary Reverend Howard Sikwela has advised the general public to set aside rest in resolving problems. Reverend Sikwela says that failure to do so may result in unforeseen divisions. Governance, Elections, Advocacy and Research Services GIVES initiative has urged all political parties with representations in the National Assembly and district councils to adopt the midterm review systems of their elected leaders in the absence of a recall vote clause in the Constitution. And GIVES initiative has described as progressive President Edgar Lungu's announcement that the Patriotic Front Central Committee will soon sit to do a midterm review of PF members of Parliament. GIVES Initiative Executive Director McDonald Chipenzi says it is gratifying that the country is now seeing the midterm review of elected leaders' performance as key to sustainable development. Mr. Chipenzi states that this move should not only be practiced in the PF but should be a national project or agenda to get rid of the political parasites in the governance of the country. He is of the view that the move is good for respective parties' ability to win public confidence and woo electorates to vote for them in future elections, as now performances in the governance system would be cut off. Mr. Chipenzi has expressed concern that the trend manifesting where some members of parliament have never spoken in the National Assembly 2 years after being elected is shameful and must not be encouraged. He states that this has led to the National Assembly becoming a milling company of bad bylaws and policies due to the presence of non-active members of parliament and councillors. Government says claims that Zafiko has been sold to the Chinese are yet another wave of fake news from the opposition. In a statement, Chief Government spokesperson Doris Leah says Zafiko has not been sold and that, like other parastatals, the timber processing company is still under the Industrial Development Corporation, which is a state conglomerate. Ms. Leah says the war government is comforted by the fact that by now citizens are aware of the scheme by the opposition to create lies to show that the country is being auctioned to the Chinese. Government is also aware that a lie repeated several times tends to be believed by some people. She has assured citizens that while it will continue to cooperate with the international community for the development of the country, it will not auction national assets. Ms. Leah says government is not in any negotiations with any investor to sell the company. She has since urged citizens to treat what she has termed as the latest opposition lies with the contempt they deserve. All People's Congress Party President Nasser Musoni has demanded for the disbandment of the Constitutional Court, claiming that it is not serving the intended purpose. Mr. Musoni says the court's recent ruling on the Lusaka Central Constituency election petition clearly contradicts the very essence of legality in totality. He has charged that the Constitutional Court has clearly proved that it was created to serve the interest of the ruling party. Mr. Musoni states that from the APC's standpoint, the Constitutional Court in its current form is dysfunctional and is incapable of delivering equitable justice to citizens. Mr. Musoni says that the court has become inimical to the public interest and is posing a serious danger to public good and order.
Making it difficult even for his judges, because from our standpoint of view, it would appear that he created the Constitutional Court to save the interest of himself and his family. It's no longer a public court. Okay? For God's sake, Zambians are funding a court which is only serving the interest of the president and his family, which we think is most unfortunate. And is even making matters more difficult for his own court, the Constitutional Court, because now it's a family court, it's a personal court. That he's going to stand, that I'm standing, I'm winning 2021. Why can't he give the opportunity with his personal court to make a decision? Okay? We have our doubts on the relevance of this court, and we think that the way forward should be to disband this court so that it can be reorganized. In its current form and state, it is not serving public interest, rather than serving the interest of those who seek to subvert our systems. So we think that this court is no longer fit for purpose. And I think I'm on firm ground to insist that we disband this court. We can't be paying money to a court that is only serving to launder electoral fraud, that is encouraging wrongdoing. We indeed want a court that will interpret the law insofar as the law is. Okay? We are watching the activities. We are watching the activities of these men and women on the bench, and we think that their activities are inimical to the questions of justice in this country. We demand for fair play. We demand for integrity from those who sit on our benches of justice.
To community news, where Disability Rights Watch has commended the Ministry of Finance for producing the Braille version of the 2017 Economic Report, making it the first official document by a ministry or government department to be produced in Braille. Organization National Coordinator Bruce Joma has since encouraged other ministries and government departments to emulate the move by the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Chomba says a lot more needs to be done to ensure the document reaches the targeted group and continues and contents are understood. He tells Q News that inasmuch as the move by the Ministry of Finance is commendable, there is need for the ministry to have data on where the blind that might be in need of the document are located across the country. Mr. Choma further notes that blindness is not the only disability, saying there are those with intellectual disabilities whose understanding is slow, therefore the need for the document to be translated into a simpler and easy to understand document as well as in various local languages. Mr. Choma has commended the Secretary to the Cabinet for issuing a circular to compel government ministries and departments to produce documents of important nature in Braille.
We would want to implore other ministries and departments to take this example and emulate it because the 2017 economic report is a very important piece of government document that citizens need to be aware of because it helps them to make decisions about the economy and about their lives. We feel that making information accessible to persons with disabilities helps to promote the agenda of inclusion because our development slogan as a country is leave no one behind. So this is a progressive step, and we commend the Secretary to the Cabinet for having issued a circular that compels government departments to make their information available in Braille for the blind. However, we wish to state that the blind are not the only persons with disabilities in the country, so it's important for communication methods to begin to look at how others can also be captured. For instance, we want to appeal to the Ministry of Finance to go a step further and simplify the 2017 economic report so that the easy-to-read versions can be used by persons with intellectual disabilities who have difficulties understanding the technical language in the economic report. Furthermore, there are other people who are blind who are unable to read Braille because they are not literate, so they need to also be complemented by either providing them with materials in audio form and also public awareness programs on radio, as well as providing audiobooks and other ways of getting information. And again, this is also complemented by the need to translate these documents into local languages so that those in rural communities can be able to access them. The move is commendable, and we feel that a lot more can be done to ensure accessibility if the support that the ministry and the government requires is provided. I think as NGOs working in the sector, we're available to support the government to ensure that they have the technical knowledge required for them to provide information to our members in accessible formats for all of them.
Government has been advised to ensure policy formulation tallies with budgetary allocations. Otobok Country Director Lango Sinkala is concerned that policymakers are in the habit of formulating policies while overlooking the aspect of resources for the implementation of the set policies. Mr. Sinkala notes that a number of policies to address the needs of people with disabilities have not been implemented because resources have not been allocated. He says that the non-correlation between policies and budgets remains the biggest challenge affecting the country in all sectors. Mr. Sinkala has observed that government has concentrated on the recruitment of human resource while policy implementation is being ignored. Mr. Sinkala, who is also disabled, says that this is the more reason why today people with disabilities are the most vulnerable in society because a policy aimed at protecting them are never made available. And in a related development, Zambia Council for Social Development, ZCSD, Acting Executive Director Pascal Walia has observed that if government prioritized investing in the social sector, issues of vulnerable would not be a topic for discussion. Speaking in an interview with QTV News, Mr. Walia is of the view that the social sector should be prioritized during the budget formulation as most vulnerable people fall under the sector.
I believe the budget should be in such a way that it prioritizes particularly the social sectors, because these are the sectors that particularly affect the vulnerable and the poor in our country. Any budget that prioritizes the rich or the big corporates without taking into consideration the needs of the poor is not a budget you can talk about. And we have seen, like in this year's budget, we have seen that a large chunk of that budget is going towards debt servicing. and the social sector in that case has actually really suffered. We would like to see a case whereby the social sector is prioritized in terms of giving adequate resources towards education, health, water supply and sanitation, and indeed the social protection areas, particularly for the needy. We would like to see a situation where, when believed the
Foreign Affairs Minister Joe Malanji has advised the traveling public, especially those traveling outside the country, to consider getting traveling insurance policy. Mr. Malanji says that people should realize that insurance offers will cushion them and provide safety in an event that they are faced with a challenge on their journey. He says that people should also realize that insurance policies are very reasonable, but that the benefits are high and beneficial. Mr. Malanji states that inasmuch as it is the obligation of government to look after its people, it may not cater for the needs of those that suffer a mishap while traveling to other parts of the world. About 13.8 million kwacha has been spent so far in various empowerment programs under the Presidential Empowerment Initiative Fund. Fund National Coordinator Clement Tembo has told Q News that the initiative has funded various empowerment programs in 5 provinces around the country, namely Lusaka, Eastern, Southern, Copper Belt. Mr. Tembo says over 21,000 people and 105 youth groups across the country have benefited from the program. He has explained that the funds have been given to churches, marketeers and youth organizations. Mr. Tembo adds that the initiative has with time moved away from giving cash to people, as the monies were not being used for the intended purposes, which is why the fund is now empowering people with incubators, goats, blocks and making machines, among others.
Since we started the empowerment, we've spent so far about 13.8 million. Remember, this is a revolving fund, and people keep paying, and then we keep spreading the resources to other people, other beneficiaries, and over 21,000 beneficiaries so far across the nation. And this is very exciting numbers, and we know that the numbers will keep growing. We're not ending here. We'll keep going. And about 105 youth groups have also benefited. So to us, I think it's quite exciting. The program is being received with both hands by the people, and the nation is watching, and the progress is there. We've done 5 provinces so far, even though these are not conclusive. What it simply means is that we've done just certain parts, hoping that wherever we have reached out, the funds will be able to trickle down to others. Like for example, if we go in an area, we focus on the integrated, like for example, integrated markets. We would ensure that the biggest markets, like conventional markets, are empowered, and then the funds start trickling down. So we know Southern Province has been done in Lusaka. We've touched a bit of Lusaka, Eastern Province, Copper Belt Province. All these areas we've been out there, and so our hope and Central Province.
As we end the news, a recap of stories making headlines once again. President Edgar Lungu says that there is no compromise with regards to the 20% subcontracting policy for foreign contractors. Justice Minister Given Lobinda says that Cabinet is yet to approve the refined draft constitution. And the Zambian and Angolan government has signed a $5 billion United States dollars memorandum of understanding on bilateral cooperations on trade in oil and gas. Thank you so much for your time. Until next time, it's bye-bye.